When ships go missing, it's always a cause for concern. But if there's one thing we know about the ocean, it's that it's just as deadly as it is vast. When an entire crew vanishes, we are left trying to figure out what happened in those last tragic moments. But what about the souls of those that perished? Some believe they haunt the sea forever, doomed to tread water for all eternity. Dubbed as the Ghost Yacht, the Kaz II is the only modern ship on this list, which makes it even creepier. On April 20th, 2007, it was found drifting within the area of the Great Barrier Reef, 90 miles offshore. Naval authorities, upon boarding the yacht, found an unsettling scene that was equal parts confusing and mysterious. Everything appeared normal, but the crew was missing. No one was on deck or working on something below. The yacht was entirely unmanned, so where could they have gone? The crew of 3 men, Derek Batten, aged 56, Peter Tunstead, aged 69, and his brother James, aged 63, were experienced in sailing, so it was unlikely they all simply fell overboard. They set sail on April 15th, and on April 18th, the helicopter found their yacht unmanned. But it was another 2 days until authorities boarded the ship and found 3 unusual things. Besides the fact that there was no one aboard, there were no signs of a struggle. Food was set out, and utensils were arranged on the table. A laptop computer was turned on, and the yacht's engine was still running. Then, James' footage surfaced, timed at 10:05 a.m., shortly before the crew's disappearance. The footage showed the following scenes. Batten is at the helm, while Peter Tunstead is at the stairway, close to the water because he is fishing. The engine isn't running, and fenders are seen hanging on safety rails on the sides of the boat. The camera, at one point, also pans 360 degrees to show the water surrounding the yacht and some distant islands. This part of the footage helped authorities pinpoint the exact location of the yacht at the time of the crew's disappearance. Finally, footage also shows that waves were starting to get higher, and none of the 3 men were wearing their life jackets. So, could that explain what happened? Was it simply human error? Plenty of theories abound. Some suspected foul play or a kidnapping. Others, the run-of-the-mill UFO or a Kraken attack. 16 months later, in August 2008, an inquest began. The coroner in Queensland stated that the men perished as the result of a tragic accident. The scenario suggested at the inquest was that perhaps, at some point, Peter Tunstead fell into the water while attempting to untangle a lure at the yacht's port side. His brother James then came to his rescue. Because the yacht is drifting, Batten had to turn on the engine to come back for the brothers. But he gets knocked by the sails, joining the Tunstead brothers in the water. This would have left the 3 men at sea while their yacht sped away, sinking deeper and deeper into the clutches of Davy Jones. In 1700, superstitions about sailing ships were common. For instance, it was considered bad luck for a woman to be on a sailing ship. Unfortunately, the tale of the Lady Lovibond supports this belief. The Lady Lovibond is a spectral ship that is believed to appear every 50 years on the Goodwin Sands. The Goodwin Sands is a geological feature in the English Channel. Tides change very quickly and sediment moves over the water. As you can imagine, it's easy to get stuck and shipwrecked in this area. A 3-mast schooner, the Lady Lovibond, left its English port on February 13, 1748, charting a course for Oporto, Portugal. The ship's captain, Simon Reed, had just been married. He brought his bride, Annetta, with him for a honeymoon voyage. But it didn't exactly turn out how either of them had hoped. While the crew celebrated with Captain Reed and Annetta, first mate John Rivers set himself apart. Though Rivers had been the best man at his captain's wedding, he was also madly in love with Annetta. He was incredibly jealous, so much so that as they made passage through the notorious Goodwin Sands, Rivers decided to take action. He took over the ship and steered it over the Goodwin Sands, destroying the Lady Lovibond and causing a disastrous wreck that cost the lives of everyone on board. Exactly 50 years after these tragic events, the captain of the ship Edinbridge recorded in his log that he nearly collided with another ship. He reported sounds of celebration and laughter as the ship broke up, but when a rescue team was dispatched, they found no signs of any such vessel anywhere. Another 50 years later, another sighting was reported, but nothing was recovered. A similar case was reported in 1848. Again, no shipwreck recovered. The very last report was in 1948, when Captain Bull Presswick reported seeing a ship that he described as the Lady Lovibond. He claimed that it was surrounded by a green glow as it entered the sands. In 1998, spectators came out to the Goodwin Sands to see if the Lady Lovibond would show up, but left disappointed when the spectral vessel did not appear. It might just be a case of folk tales making its way into the imaginations of the people who saw the specter of the Lady Lovibond. Even so, the legend of the Lady Lovibond is one eerie, tragic, and fascinating case. The disappearance of the Mary Celeste crew is one of the most enduring nautical mysteries. The history of this ship is extensive and well documented, but we'll begin our tale on November 7, 1872, when the Mary Celeste set sail from New York City and was bound for Genoa, Italy. Aboard the ship were 7 crewmen, with Captain Benjamin Spooner Biggs, his wife Sarah, and their daughter Sophia, aged 2. The ship was stocked with 6 months' worth of food, water, and supplies. But on December 5, 1872, a month and 2 days from when the ship set sail, a British vessel named Del Gratia found the Mary Celeste unguided and adrift 400 miles from Azores, Portugal. Del Gratia changed course to offer the ship adrift some help. Led by Captain David Morehouse, a boarding party was sent across. What Captain Morehouse's crew found was disturbing and baffling, and nowhere near what they expected. Below decks, charts for navigating had been thrown around. The crewmen's belongings were still in their quarters. 3.5 feet of water was sloshing around in the ship's hull. The only lifeboat was missing, and the ship's 2 pumps had been taken apart. 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol was intact, and their supply of food and water were untouched. So, what happened? Though, like the case of the CAS-2, an inquest and salvage hearing was conducted in Gibraltar, no one could determine the fate of Captain Spooner Briggs, his family, and crew. Explanations offered range from a possible mutiny, foul play because the ship was overinsured, natural phenomenon, and malfunctions in the ship. But having described the condition of the ship when it was found, it seemed that Captain Spooner Biggs and his crew acted in haste and panic. To this day, the story of the Mary Celeste is full of speculation. It continues to be the subject of both historical and paranormal investigation. Was there something within the ship that frightened the captain and his crew enough for them to leave? 149 years after their strange disappearance, the Mary Celeste leaves more anxious questions than reassuring answers. Let's go into the lore of the Flying Dutchman, a ship that is believed to be an omen of doom if sighted. The legend of the Flying Dutchman is said to have come from the golden age of the East India Company and Dutch maritime power in the 17th century. The oldest surviving version of the ship's yarn dates back to the 1800s. According to the legend, if contacted by another ship, the crew of the Flying Dutchman was said to try to send messages back to land or to people long gone. Accounts of sightings of the ship with an otherworldly glow come from writings and books from the 18th and 19th centuries, with many claiming to have spotted the Flying Dutchman around the Cape of Good Hope near South Africa. Although a famous sighting by King George V, when he was still Prince George of Wales, happened in the coast of Australia in 1881. A credible explanation for the sightings is the Fata Morgana, or superior mirage seen at sea. If it is indeed a Fata Morgana, the Flying Dutchman would be a real ship that would appear hovering above the surface of the sea because of the way rays of light coming from the sun or moon are altered and bent due to certain atmospheric conditions. The Flying Dutchman is probably the most popular of ghost ships. It has inspired plenty of films, paintings, literature, plays, musical compositions, and of course, cartoons. But the question remains, is it simply a spooky story, or is there a much darker truth to this particular legend? The perishing of the crew aboard the SS Orang Medan is undetermined. Depending on the newspaper source, they may have passed away under suspicious circumstances sometime in the 40s. What happened, or didn't happen, to the Orang Medan? What was the fate of its crew? It is believed that the Orang Medan wandered into the Malacca Straits, a stretch of water between the Indonesian island of Sumatra and the Malaysian peninsula, although what happened after this point remains unclear. Around June 1947, two American vessels, the City of Baltimore and the Silver Star, were sailing through the Malacca Straits when they picked up distress signals. These signals were coming from the Dutch ship Orang Medan. A chilling and gut-wrenching message was transmitted from the ship by an unnamed radio operator in Morse code. SOS from Orang Medan. We float. All officers, including the captain, deceased in the chart room and on the bridge. Probably whole crew dead. A few moments later, several confused dashes are again transmitted before the final message. I die. Then, nothing. When the Silver Star crew eventually located and boarded the doomed Orang Medan, what they found was frightening beyond comparison. The ship was littered with bodies lying on their backs, mouths open, and wide eyes staring into the sun in absolute terror. Among the men, there was also the body of a dog. No survivors were found. When the Silver Star was preparing to tow the ship back to shore, a fire broke out in the Orang Medan's fourth cargo hold, forcing the boarding crew to immediately evacuate the ship. The Orang Medan exploded before sinking, taking its secrets to the ocean floor and preventing any further investigation from being carried out. Unfathomable, opaque, and filled with tales of ghost ships and disappearances, the ocean is a terrifying place for sure. It still remains the vast unknown. What are your thoughts on these 5 scary ships and the fates of their crew? Do you have your own theories and speculations? Let me know in the comments below.